You're listening to 2KC, the podcast, a TMBP media production.
Welcome to 2KC, the podcast. I'm your co-host, Dr. Tasha, and you're listening to TMBP Media. Hey, Corinthian.
Hey, honey, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good.
You doing okay upstairs?
Yes, I am. You did a great intro. That was excellent.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your coaching on that. And that's a perfect segue into what is 2KC, the podcast. 2KC stands for 2 Kelly's Consulting. And that is a new coaching and consulting business that my husband and I have partnered in. And one of the things that we hope to do for you is provide you with some coaching in the various areas of your life. I'm kicking this off because, again, I'm Dr. Tasha, and I own the Millennial Black Professor and recently founded TMBP Media, which is an acronym for the Millennial Black Professor. And 2KC, the podcast, is one of a suite of shows that fall under TMBP Media. And so with this podcast, we're just hoping to give you a little taste of what you can expect when working with 2 Kellys and let you know today how we got started and share a little bit about our background and expertise and ultimately, again, how we can support you.
Again, my name is Corinthian Kelly. You heard from my lovely wife, Dr. Tasha. I'm so proud of her and all the awesome things that she's doing. I have the pleasure of being an initiatives manager with the Stand Together Foundation here in Wichita, Kansas. In that role, we look for opportunities to support grassroots solutions that are about transformative solutions to solving problems. So I'm so excited to be a part of that team and uplift great work that's happening in community. Our vision is for every person to be empowered, and I feel blessed to play a small part in trying to achieve that mission. Prior to joining Stand Together, I worked as a community initiatives program manager with the Public Policy and Management Center at Wichita State University. My whole role was being out in community, trying to identify opportunities to increase access and remove barriers. Had the pleasure of doing a lot of strategic planning in my prior role with the PPMC. A lot of work with nonprofits, with local governments, with state agencies, and everyone in between. I was blessed to work in that role because I got my master's in public administration from Wichita State University and got some graduate certificates in city county management, nonprofit management, and public finance. So I had an opportunity to put all that work and that course of study to use in those roles. Prior to that, I served as a management intern out of the Sedgwick County Manager's Office. I have background in youth development and education. My last stop was working with TRIO Educational Opportunity Center program, work with adults interested in going back to school. I've had the pleasure and fortune of working with students from pre-K to elementary school to middle school to high school and non-traditional learners or adult learners. That's a little bit about me. I don't know if you needed all that context.
I believe all of that is helpful because it will allow the people to know the different ways that we're able to show up for them and support. A little bit about me. We are Wichita transplants. Love Wichita, but we are from Newport News, Virginia, 757 all day. But we are excited about how we've been able to grow and develop and connect here in Wichita. I was in a job working for the U.S. Department of Education. My background is in higher ed. I started my career in that field at my undergraduate institution. If you check out one of the other podcasts in the suite, First Gen Print, we talk about the importance of work study jobs. My first job, well, I won't say my first job. My real first job was working at Baskin Robbins, but that's a story for another day. But in terms of in college, I was working for about 3.5 years, almost my entire college tenure in the Office of Admissions. And that really kicked off my interest and passion for helping students and their parents, and especially marginalized, underrepresented student groups with the admissions process and figuring out not just how to get to college, but going beyond access and ensuring their success. That looks different for different student populations. So I love being able to figure that out with students and parents. That's what propelled me into working full time in admissions at my undergraduate institution. That's where I got mentorship that encouraged me to pursue a master's in higher education administration. My degree is in educational policy planning and leadership. And I went on to earn a PhD in language literacy and culture. Along the way, I ended up getting that job with the US Department of Education, but it didn't give me the kind of one-on-one contact, the people, the student contact that I wanted. So I stayed long enough to get vested, but I was always picking up jobs and opportunities along the way to be able to work with students. I did orientation advising, I was a part-time lecturer, and then I ended up, after graduating with my degree, I started teaching at George Mason University in their first year transitions program. So many things, but all of them really focused on getting students from access to success. And then what does it look like once they actually graduate? We also want to see post graduation success stories. After graduating with my PhD, I also started picking up a lot of Black women doctoral students that needed support in their dissertation work, even figuring out from the application stage where to apply, how do I find out about funding, and then when it did come to the writing phase, help with that aspect as well. Basically dissertation coaching and consulting, that has been a joy. I've served on several committees. I had on my committee 3 Black women, a Black man, and it was so important for me to see these Black individuals and Black women in particular who were doing the thing that I was trying to do. To now be that for someone else is very fulfilling. Things have really changed because I transitioned from full-time 9 to 5 employment to full-time entrepreneurship. That brings us to some of what we'll be discussing on 2KC the podcast, because that has been a shift. I'm thankful for my love, my husband, for being the support that he has been, because I wouldn't have been able to make that transition without his support. But also what it looks like being in business together when you're married and the tools and resources that we've leveraged for that to be successful. That was all over the place, but that's me. That's my
Yep. Well, now, I don't know if the viewing audience knows, but TMBP Media is like a conglomerate. You have a suite of podcasts. I was able to get one of the hottest tickets in town to your launching of Black in One Piece. Can you give the audience a little taste of what that was? Because it's popping right now.
Thank you. Yes, we on Juneteenth launched Black in One Piece, the founding podcast for TMBP Media. In around September-ish, October-ish, Corinthian shared with me information about the Info Challenge grant offered by Wichita Foundation. They were partnering with Tiny News Collective, the fiscal sponsor, but they also are a collective of different newsrooms, and they offer various supports. In that partnership, they were looking to fund up and coming or underrepresented founded newsrooms in Wichita. I decided to pitch a series of podcasts. I don't know if that's what they were looking for. Being a first generation college grad, there's a lot of things in my journey that I've done non-traditionally. The Lord has blessed me in that way. I wanted to be true to me and how I could best amplify underrepresented voices in Wichita and beyond. And I felt like that was through podcasts. I pitched the suite. It included Black in One Piece, another one called Life Undissertated. And there have been a few added since then. Thankfully, they saw the value in my ideas. And here we are now.
Excellent. What you're going to see throughout the course of these conversations, my wife is incredibly humble, in addition to her being incredibly talented. So I'm going to fill in. My wife had never applied for a grant before. That was her first time applying for a grant. And she got the grant. It was a competitive grant. She got it, got funding to launch the suite. The ideas were brilliant. What she proposed was brilliant. And we're so thankful that the Wichita Foundation saw value in amplifying that perspective, those voices. So excited about what's to come. Can't wait for the next episode. Your launch party was amazing. It just goes to show Wichita has so much talent. I'm a firm believer that talent is everywhere, opportunities are not. It's great to see when opportunities are seized.
I love that. I think we can transition into a little bit more because as we go along, the people will learn more about us in our backgrounds, I'm sure. But I did want to share a little bit about how 2KC got started. One of the things that you'll kind of peep as we go along is the differences in how our minds work. Both beautiful minds, but they work very different. I'm very into naming and names. If I have an idea, I'm thinking about the name because the name will trigger so many other thoughts and ideas. Names just have so much power. Corinthian is drilling down into the details of the who, what, where, why, when, and all of that. I say that to say Corinthian had signed us up to give a presentation on the Harlem Renaissance. Mind you, now Corinthian has given many presentations in the past, but his presentations, especially here in Wichita, have typically centered around his journey as a Wichita transplant and coming from Newport News. Remind us, honey love, what your degrees are in.
Jeff, funny. My undergrad alma mater is Virginia Tech. Actually, let me say the full title: Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, otherwise known as Virginia Tech. I got my bachelor's in public and urban affairs with emphasis on global development and a minor in leadership studies. I got my master's from Wichita State University in public administration with graduate certificates in city county management, nonprofit management, and public finance. I'm currently working on a second master's in human resources management from Wichita State University. You didn't hear anything about history, but yep.
As I mentioned earlier, so since we shouting out institutions, my undergraduate institution is Christopher Newport University. It's a small liberal arts college in Newport News, Virginia. I then attended the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, and then I earned my PhD at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. That PhD, as I said before, was in language literacy and culture. My focus was Black studies, the Black body, and things of that nature. So when Corinthian came back and said that he had signed up for a presentation on the Harlem Renaissance.
So America, if y'all hearing, you heard her say Black culture and stuff. I say it's a perfect fit.
A perfect fit for who? That's the question.
I said my wife got us covered, with that. That's what I said in my head.
Yes. He said that he had been invited to do this presentation on the Harlem Renaissance. He said yes, but only if he could bring his wife along with him. And that, my friends, was really the impetus of 2 Kelly's Consulting. Working on the presentation was really fun. It pushed us to learn even more the different ways that we process, but it was a joy, honestly. And then the finished product, based on feedback, and I believe so myself, was really solid. We had been talking for a while about doing something together because anytime Corinthian had some question or concern or work thing, or me preparing for an interview or something like that, we would offer different feedback or support each other in ways that ultimately would lead to success, whatever success looked like in that situation. Because it doesn't always mean that, like for the interview process, that I got the job, but even after that process, feeling more confident in being able to answer those questions now. So we have been talking about it, but I think throwing us out there, we really kicked us off. And back to the naming, I was like, 2 Kelly's Consulting. We have a saying now that if any of y'all remember back to the Captain Planet days, we say,
well, raise your hand if you're an 80s baby. If you're an 80s baby, then you'll know what we talking about, right?
We would say, I'll kick it off. When our powers combine,
we are 2KC.
yes.
Like Captain Planet, the complementary skill sets that we have. That's what makes it beautiful. We're stronger together. We complement each other in our thinking. If both of us thought the same exact way, it wouldn't work. Tasha helps me see my blind spots, and I help her see hers. And working together, it's a joy because the finished product is always great. That Harlem Renaissance presentation, they asked us to come back. It's also spurred other work. I hope y'all peep some of the shirts that we have on. Quick plug. Jacqueline Kelly for Judge, our awesome sister-in-law. She reached out to Two Kellys Consulting to do some work on her campaign. It's been so cool to work on different projects with Tasha.
One of the things we wanted to touch on as well is some of the ways that we've been able to transfer or apply what we've learned together, and then on our individual journeys that we've shared a little bit with y'all about, to support individuals in the community who are also doing great things. I think one good example is I am a graduate of the Spark Community Business Academy, which is a program under Create Campaign, an amazing organization out here that supports small businesses, underrepresented entrepreneurs in a range of things, from getting your LLC to, I even, with their support, was able to secure the trademark for the Millennial Black Professor, to having a business plan, an executive summary, a pitch. I was able to gain a friend. You hear people saying no new friends. And as adults, you don't necessarily always think about making new friends per se, and you keep your circle small and tight. But coming out here from Virginia, it was important for me to build a network, not just of my husband and my family that was already out here, their friends and connections, but to just have something that's my own as well, and to start building that out. And I really was able to start doing that through Spark. There's one business owner in the program that I've gotten close with. Going off of what she has shared with me, she experienced exponential growth through Spark. So she already had to make such leaps and bounds in terms of her confidence. But then from there, it's one of those things where while you're in a program and you're going every week, you're really about it. Once you have that free time back, you can fall off a little bit. She was struggling with direction and figuring out how to get started again. One component of the business was keeping her from moving forward. She already had the experience, a model to start. All the other pieces of the puzzle were there, but this one piece was holding her back. This was not even for 2KC. This was just in us trying to support one another and being friends. Every time we would talk, I would hear that. I had a conversation with Corinthian about it at one point, and we both were saying the same thing. It's just that one piece. So I shared that with her, and it was a game changer. Her whole outlook has shifted now, and she's super excited about moving forward, believing that if she's supposed to circle back to that piece, she will. But if not, feeling confident in the path that she's on and how she's moving forward, just off the strength that she's moving forward, because she was stagnant before. Sometimes all it takes is someone from an outside perspective, and that has also been there, to see things a little bit differently and give you that aha moment. Those are the things that I find joy. And that's why I love teaching, because you have those moments a lot with your students as you help them discover new things or experience new things or see things in a new way.
I love that story, Tasha. I love it because what I hear in that is empowerment. All the tools are there. Sometimes you have to speak that into someone that gives them the confidence to do and move. Working with nonprofits, going through strategic planning processes, mission, vision, value statements, I've come across sayings that I love and I've now incorporated into my vocabulary. I heard someone say, ACT, ACT, learn, build. So you can have all these ideas, but until you start acting on them, nothing happens. It might not be perfect when you start, but once you act, you learn from it. Maybe I should have tweaked this or that. That's the learn portion. And then you build. It's an iterative process, but there is such thing as paralysis by analysis. You can literally wait for ideal the weather to change. You can be waiting for the perfect situation. That situation will never come. If you don't take nothing away from this, from me, act, learn, build.
Corinthian has really helped me with just doing it. I saw a post recently and it made me laugh because I say it all the time, but the post was like, you can spend so much time trying to pull your life together that you miss it. I'm talking to a friend and they're like, what you got going on? I'm like, girl, just trying to pull my life together. I say that all the time, but you don't want to get stuck in that pulling it together space, because it's always going to be something. Making sure that, okay, you're pulling it together, but as you're pulling it together, you're still moving and shaking. I can apply that to social media. Corinthian has helped me get over overthinking and fear, worried about how things might land. The reality is that the name of the game is, we always have known about networking, but a lot of that happens now in the social media space, whether that's LinkedIn, TikTok, even Pinterest. I am a Grow with Google facilitator. One of the trainings we give around your online presence does talk about how it can be overwhelming. It's important to understand the type of business you have. What is your product or service? Being clear on that, your target audience, and allowing that to drive what platforms you need to get on right now. Depending on your service or product, you may not need TikTok. You may not even need to go down that road, or you may not need Pinterest, but you absolutely want to be on LinkedIn. And maybe you definitely want to pick between Instagram or Facebook or something like that. But if that's something that overwhelms you, not allowing it to keep you stuck, but identifying where can I start and then go from there. I always will feel some of the things that I share. Oh, everybody knows that. Not being funny, but saying, I don't think what I'm saying or what I have to share is so earth shattering. And Corinthians always like, no, somebody needs it. Somebody needs to hear that. And even if they've heard it before, sometimes it's the delivery person. Sometimes it's who it's coming from, in the spirit in which it's coming, that can make a difference in receiving it and being able to apply it. That's another thing that 2KC brings, is personal touch and being able to show up for people in the way that they need it in a given moment.
I couldn't have said that any better. One of the benefits, looking at both of our skill sets, how they complement each other, we help synthesize and distill information down. My wife's a professor, the millennial Black professor, and information has to be decoded. It has to be distilled, synthesized to your audience. What we pride ourselves in being able to do is tailor our communication to the audience, to the end user. There's different language I'm going to use if I'm talking to a group of high school students. That's different from young professionals. That's different from graduate students in college. Knowing the audience is so important. If you can get an understanding, you can level set, decode information, so there's general understanding across the board, you can see a lot of momentum and a lot of growth.
Yes, decoding, and we are connectors. Plug time, another shout out for my sister, Jacqueline Kelly, but the entire family. Like I said, when I came out here, while it was important for me to have my own network, that was for my own well-being. I've moved a lot for school and work, and it's always been important for me to find my people. It's a blessing to come to a place so far away from home and know that your family has put down roots and has genuinely and authentically gotten plugged into and connected with the community, not for what the community can give to them, but for how they can be of service to the community. And it's a natural back and forth of helping one another between my brother-in-law, Daryl Kelly, who is with the Kansas Leadership Center, my sister, Veronica Kelly.
Veronica's at DCF, Department of Children and Families.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And I tease Corinthian because he always says he and Daryl know everybody, and which is fine. So I get excited when I meet someone who is like, either they're mixing Daryl and Corinthian up or they may not have met them yet. But I say that to say genuinely, even through, if you've never heard of it, when I got here, one of the first things Corinthian told me I needed is the gathering. That was an opportunity for me to come into a space where there were a number of Black professionals from a variety of backgrounds and fields and experiences coming together to connect. That's simply it. No expectation beyond that. I had only been here less than 6 months at the time. From there, I've built some really close relationships professionally and otherwise. I'm thankful for that. It's that connection piece again. We recently had the grand gathering, and it always amazes me how someone can come up to really anyone who's on the G team, as we call it, or anyone in that space and say they are in need of something in particular, whether they're looking for a job, or someone came up to me at this last one saying she had just come to Wichita. She's in the mental health space and seen one of my sweatshirts that say therapy period and thought I was a therapist. I let her know, no, I'm just a mental health advocate. We're having a robust conversation. This is at the gathering event, y'all. So we've already had good food, good music. There's a DJ there. We dancing. We got to learn from different people, but just a robust experience already. And then at this time, we're having a really good conversation connecting. And we were about to wrap up. And she noticed that I had an elephant necklace on. And she asked me what sorority I was in, because I had mentioned earlier I was in a sorority, and I said Delta, and she was my soror. From there, I have gotten her connected with the president of the chapter. They're about to go to lunch in the coming weeks. There's value in being able to connect people where they need to be plugged in.
Thank you for that plug on the gathering. The purpose of the gathering is to know who people are, what people do, and discover what we can do together. Now, Tasha has joined our G team. Tasha created our website, www.thegatheringict.com. A whole lot of cool stuff that's happening because of the gathering. I'm a firm believer in RTR, and RTR stands for relationship, task, relationship. What I have realized in my close to 7 years of being out here in Wichita, Kansas, Wichita is a relationships town. What you know is important, but I would also say who you know is important and who knows you is important in Wichita. The gathering is a space to connect people that are doing amazing things through relationship. Once you build relationship, one of the best ways we know how to cultivate and build relationships is by breaking bread together and talking about what you're passionate about. The beauty in doing something that simple is you start discovering, man, I didn't know that was your passion, or I didn't know that's what you spend your time in. That's your personal passion project. Then for me, how my brain works is I start thinking, well, do you know this person because they're working in that field? Or do you know this person? That's what they're doing right now. From the relationship can lead to a whole lot of cool things. There's so many different stories that I could tell. People come up to me to this day about connections they made from the gathering, people they didn't know lived in Wichita. I mean, I could go on. We could be on here for another 40 minutes talking about that. There's power in connection. I've realized it takes sometimes putting yourself out there, showing up to a space where you don't know anyone, and then sharing about yourself. I know for our introverts, that's a hard thing to do, but you never know who's in the room. And I can tell you personally, I'm sitting in the position I'm in now by doing that. Taking a lunch with someone, telling someone what I was passionate about, job, employment opportunities, board service, the whole gamut.
Yes. When we talk about what are the things that we offer, you mentioned sometimes you're kind of leery about going into certain spaces. That can be me because I have anxiety, social anxiety, all kind of stuff going on. Sometimes all you need is the support of someone being there with you. And I have learned that there's no shame in that. People will be like, oh, you should be able to travel by yourself. You should be able to do this by yourself. Not taking into account so many factors that might be a barrier for someone to be able to do that. That same example I was giving earlier, I've been able to support that individual in experiencing their first vending situation because they hadn't done that yet. That was something they were thinking about. By them being able to accompany me, and I told them, I don't have a problem with you being at my table with your cards, wear your shirt, promote yourself, because it's enough room for everybody. And so now she can't wait to the next vending opportunity. When we talk about showing up, it's beyond the conversations, but the doing of it all. I could go on and on, but we got to save a little something. Keep you coming back, right? So we really appreciate y'all tuning in for this first episode of 2KC, the podcast. We want to give you a little taste of who we are, what we do, and what we want to bring to you, how we hope to support you. In order to get in contact with us, if you would like to work with us, you can visit themillennialblackprofessor.com. You'll see a link that says services. You can complete that form, and there's an option to select 2 Kelly's Consulting. You might be wondering, what's the difference between working with 2 Kelly's Consulting or just going with the Millennial Black Professor? My primary focus with the Millennial Black Professor, I work students in higher education, entrepreneurs. When you are working with 2 Kelly's Consulting, it really goes back to that multi-pronged approach and you being able to benefit from both of our experience and background. For example, with the Harlem Renaissance presentation, we really were, I was teasing Corinthian earlier, but I believe that everybody, their background, there's value in all of that. There were some things I myself, the Millennial Black Professor, likely wouldn't have thought of, but by us partnering, it's brought that extra little oomph. If that's what you're in need of, that extra little oomph, complete that form. And then you can also send an email to Dr. Tasha at tmbpmedia.com. And I'll also have in our show notes an email that goes directly to Kelly's Consulting. I also encourage you to shoot us an email, send us a direct message on social media at TMBP Media. Let us know what questions you have. What are some of the challenges, the pain points, as Corinthian likes to say, that we can talk you through? Because maybe you don't right now have the opportunity or ability to work with us directly, but we want to be, when we do our podcast episodes, addressing things that people are really struggling with. So let us know in the comments. Subscribe to TMBP Media so you can get alerts when we go live or when we have this next conversation. Anything that you want to share, my love?
Oh, that was excellent. The plugs were just, I'm so happy I'm a part of 2 Kelly's Consulting. I'm so happy you keep me on payroll for 2 Kelly's Consulting. Again, when our powers combine, great things can happen. Excited to be on this journey with you all. Thank you all so much for tuning in.
Thank you. Until next time, keep thriving.